The former permanent secretary to the Brexit Department has been serving as Theresa May's Europe advisor since September 2017. The BBC report suggested Brexiteers remain wary of Mr Robbins, who is allegedly considered to be a classic civil servant failing to see the opportunities Brexit offers. Former frontbencher Lord Lawson said the Thatcher Government also encountered issues with civil servants as they introduced radical changes to the economy, but the bureaucrats ultimately accepted their role. He said, with the Thatcher government, we came in and introduced a radical change in economic policy, and all the officials were aghast. Reuters BBC Brexit news reports suggest Brexiteers are wary of Lord Robbins. They thought it would be a disaster, but we had at that time a strong cabinet led by an outstanding Prime Minister, and they accepted the leadership as it's their constitutional duty. Lord Lawson continued, the officials will do their best to frustrate this process because, as I say, it goes against the grain so fundamentally. But they equally realize a constitutional duty to accept the leadership of the politicians, of the government, of the elected government. That is our constitutional position. The BBC Newsnight account claimed Brexit Secretary David Davis has a somewhat prickly relationship with Mr Robbins. Mr Davis has been the public face of Britain's Brexit negotiations team since talks began last year, but concerns have been raised about the true nature of his role when Phase 2 talks begin. Meanwhile, Mr Robbins, the former civil servant in charge of the UK's Department for exiting the EU DEXU, who now runs Brexit negotiations from the Cabinet Office, is allegedly shouldering more responsibility for Brexit progress as talks move on. The officials will do their best to frustrate this process because it goes against the grain so fundamentally. Lord Lawson. BBC political editor Nicholas Watt said, I understand that David Davis, the actual Brexit secretary who has something of a prickly relationship with Lord Robbins, has a habit of opening meetings with him by welcoming colleagues to the Lord Robbins People Soviets. Everyone reportedly has a chuckle, but some Leave ministers are suspicious of him and regard him as a classic civil servant who sees Brexit as a crisis to be managed rather than an opportunity to be seized. I've spoken to one Tory Brexiteer who went to at Oxford College and is wary of Lord Robbins. They are all commie geographers, this Tory told me of the Hertford College alumni. In December, it emerged Mr Robbins had held talks with Michel Barnier, the European Union's chief Brexit negotiator, without Mr Davis. It comes after allies of Mr Davis suggested he could quit over frustration at being frozen out of key strategic talks on the UK's divorce from the European Union. Mr Davis, who is known as DD, and is a vocal supporter of Brexit, previously quit as Shadow Home Secretary in a sudden move under David Cameron's leadership in 2008.